Good morning, First West. My name is Mark Ulrich, and I'm a pastor of student ministries and missions here. And it's an honor to be with us today, or be with you today, as we finish up this Don't Duck Your Dynasty series. And it's a great way, that Beard app is an awesome way. If you ever wondered what you'd look like with facial hair, send that picture in, you get to see it. If you ever have some facial hair and you're like, I wonder what the epic amount of facial hair would be, like that huge beard, it's an easy way to try it before you buy it, because it does take some effort to grow a beard. I know, because you have to groom it, you have to comb it out when it gets to a certain length. That's an agreement that I have with my wife. It gets a certain length, I have to comb it, make sure there's no animals in there, stuff like that, or left out food, leftovers, stuff like that. That's not acceptable. So if you have that length of a beard, you know what I'm talking about. It's easy to lose some food in there, yogurt, ice cream, stuff like that. So easy way, awesome series we've been in, and it's an awesome time for us as a church to kind of lay out a strategy that we have, and to say, you know what, we're connecting with children and students. We partner with parents with the purpose to transform families. It's a great way that we just kind of lay this series out, and we get to go through. And you've heard Chris up here, you've heard Bill Johnson, and Heather and myself were up here a couple weeks ago. And then here's this today, where we're just going to talk this through. And you see the sermon title, and you see the dinner table up here. So it's very basic. And I just want to encourage you, as we go through these next few moments, and as we've gone through this series, don't fall into this trap of comparison, where you think Chris or Bill or any of us who have been on the stage have it all together, because we don't. It's easy to fall into that trap. I've sat where you guys are sitting right now. I've fallen into the trap of comparison, thinking, man, I wish my family, my life was like that. A few years ago, I was looking for a picture frame for student ministries event coming up. And I was going through a store. Normally, I can walk into a store, pick what I need, and walk right out. No time wasted there. Typically, though, but this particular one, I needed a certain kind of picture frame. It needed to be a certain size. It needed to be a certain shape, color, and all that. So I spent what I thought was an eternity in the store picking out picture frames. It was 5 minutes, which is a long time. And as I'm looking through the picture frames, I see a common theme in every single picture frame. Inside the picture frame, there's a picture that looks exactly like this. This is what I would consider the stock family photo. Every one of these picture frames had something like this up there. Mom and dad, 2 kids, maybe 3, maybe a dog was involved, or a white picket fence. Maybe they were skipping through meadows and flowers and all this other stuff, having a great time. But no one looked unhappy. They looked extremely happy and loving to be around each other. And I sat there and I was like, man, I wish my family pictures were always like this. I wish my family, and we have an amazing family. I have a beautiful wife who's amazing. I don't know if Heather's in here today, but she's amazing. We have 2 great kids. There's nothing really to complain about, but I sat there at that store thinking, man, I wish my family looked like this all the time. I've jumped on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. I've looked at all these other pictures and posts of other people thinking, man, I wish that was the case for me all the time too. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparison when we look at the filtered perfection of other people and we apply it to our lives or compare it to our lives, and we realize it's completely different. One of my favorite things about our day and age is the worldwide internets and the worldwide webs, where we get to look and we get to see pictures like this, because maybe this is really what happened in these pictures leading up to that family stock photo, where the older sibling's like, forget this, I'm going to decorate my younger kid. And so she's writing all over his face with the permanent marking. You can take a look at the next one and really see this. And then maybe that younger sibling grows up and he has no one else to draw on, so he finds the dog. Take a look at this one. Permanent markers all over. We don't get to see these on those family stock photos, and very rarely do we get to see these kind of pictures on social media. And then parents, have you ever sat down and you just want a few more moments of rest and silence and sleep? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And then you hear, maybe it's a Saturday morning, Mom, I'm hungry. Dad, I'm hungry. And you respond, give me a few more minutes. A few more minutes, that's all I need. And then you walk into the kitchen and you see this, because the kid's like, forget it, I'm going to get my own food. And then the older sibling's like, forget it, we'll go to the top because that's where the good stuff is. Oh, not that one, next one. She's looking for the stuff up top. And so it's very easy to fall into this. And this next picture, we've all seen this as a parent. You've all walked into something like this. Dirty diaper gone bad. Yeah. Who's cleaning that one up? It's not the kid, right? It's not the dog. It's you as a parent. We have a story very similar to that one involved in ceiling fan where that one went splattering everywhere. I won't tell you the rest of it, but there you go. These probably are the pictures that go leading up into the family stock photo. And then there's the kid who thinks everything is a toy and everything should be played with. So he or she decides, you know what, we're just going to experiment with a toilet. And we're going to play with stuff that aren't toys. And we're just going to play with it and see what happens. And then who has to clean that one up and fix that one? Parents do, exactly. That is the world we live in. And that's what I love about the World Wide Web and all these other stories. When you look at something and you see it for face value and you think they are perfect or they have nothing to worry about, but you see backstories and you see these kind of pictures. So in the next few moments, I'm going to share some stories of my life. And I pray and I hope that you hear my heart on this. We have stories that are just like this. Don't think that we have it all together, the Ulrich family, or that Chris Conrad had it all together when he got up here to speak, or Bill Johnson. We all have these stories, so don't fall into the trap of comparison. But my hope is, and my prayer is, that you will hear the heart of God and his call to you as a parent. And that you would live up to that responsibility and that privilege. And you can learn some stuff from our family. Deuteronomy chapter 6, it's in the Old Testament, beginning part of the Bible. If you need to find it there, that's where it is. It's very central to the Israelite nation. God spoke this directly to Moses. Moses is writing this down. Moses is a patriarch. He is one of the top guys in the Israelite nation and their heritage. And he's talking to the nation of Israel. And here's what he says. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is one, the Lord is God. And we can read over that, but when we don't understand, if we don't take the time to really unpack that, what Moses is telling the nation of Israel is simply this, that God is one. He's not confused. He's not multiple gods. He has one understanding. He's very distinct in his decision making. He doesn't have other gods below him to carry out his dirty work or to communicate to the humans. God being one is simply this, that God is there and he will speak directly to the people. Exodus chapter 19, God comes down and he talks to the people himself. He is the one that will deal with us as human beings. He goes on to say this, love the Lord your God with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. So what's that mean for you and I if we're sitting in this room? Love God with everything that we have. If we want to avoid the trend of ducking our dynasty, we have to have a relationship with God. And the only way that comes through in a right way is through Jesus Christ. We find that out in the scriptures all the way through it. If we don't have a personal relationship with God, one-on-one, our own, you will always duck your dynasty. Because God is more concerned and he's calling all Christian families to come up and live up to your dynasty. We have an amazing privilege and responsibility as parents to pass on our heritage and our legacy. And our faith should be part of that. If your faith journey is not your own journey, you will never be able to pass it on to your children the way that God intended you to do. Because God put you in your children's lives so that you will become the spiritual giant. That's your God-given responsibility. Moses goes on to talk about the words of God no matter what, like at any point of the day, when you're walking, when you're sleeping, when you're eating, if you're bathing, if you're working out, if you're exercising, whatever you want to call it. At any point of the day, we should be able to talk about the words of God and impress the ways of Jesus onto our children. Moses talks about reminding ourselves continually. Bind the words of God onto your wrist as a bracelet or on your forehead, which looks a little funky. We don't typically do that, but that's what God asked Moses to do, or the nation of Israel through Moses to do. He talks about putting it on your gatepost coming into your property and on your doorpost when you go into your house. Continually remind yourself of the words of God and the ways of Jesus. That is our goal. This is a God-given goal given to us by God. As a parent, we can't walk away and say, you know what, I don't like that goal. If we're going to say we're going to follow Christ, we're going to be Christ-following people that are going to honor Jesus, that is our God-given goal. The question will be, how do we achieve this goal? How many of you guys have ever set a goal? Keep your hand up if that goal you've attained. How many of you guys have ever failed at a goal? Yeah, more hands just went up. It's easy to fail at goals. It's easy to set goals. You know how you fail at a goal? You do nothing. It's easy to set a goal. That's like throwing an idea out there. Yeah, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep eating what I want to eat and see if that works. Or I want to get smarter, but I'm just going to play more video games. That's not really going to work either. Sorry for all you people who play video games nonstop. But around 8 years ago, I had a goal of losing weight. It was a cool idea, and I would watch The Biggest Loser, and I get really inspired by watching these 500-pound people losing weight within this hour segment of TV time. And they ate, they exercised, and I was like, man, that's awesome. And I would get up and I would like, man, this is the day. This is when I'm going to really lose this weight. And I could tell myself I was picking up some pounds here and there. And I'd get really motivated, really excited, and then I'd just shovel more ice cream in my mouth. And I'm not talking just some ice cream. Like, it would be a bowl about this big with peanut butter and pancake syrup and caramel and butterscotch and morsels and graham crackers. And I would stir it up, and my mouth is salivating right now thinking of this ice cream. That's how trained and conditioned I am to know what to eat. And I would sit there and I'd get really motivated. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to keep eating this. I took a job up here in Battle Creek, and we moved up here. And before I actually got hired, I had to go for a physical. And that morning, I woke up, and I looked down, and I couldn't see my feet. They weren't gone. They were just blocked. Like, legit. Like, oh, there's my left foot. Okay, and there's my right. I had to go find a mirror, too, and say, okay, we're good. And it was one of those old-school weight scales, like the ones that kind of slide around. And the thing topped out at like 290 plus. I was like, yep, picked on a few extra pounds that I thought, you know. And from college on to that point, I was like, okay, Taco Bell, Firehouse Subs, all these other things are adding up. Dunkin' Donuts every morning. All these things started adding up, and that was it. But remember, I had set a goal to lose some weight. I had the idea. But it wasn't until that day where I was like, okay, I've got to do something about this. And so I set down my bowl of ice cream, which made me sad, and I ate like carrots and celery and radishes and other rabbit food. And I've had to give my weight goal, if you will, the attention and the intention it deserves, because any goal worth setting is a goal giving it attention and intention. If you do nothing about your goal will never become achieved. As a parent, we have a God-given goal: impress the ways of Jesus onto your children. That's our goal. Give it the attention and intentionality that it deserves, because your children and your dynasty is worthy of it. It's no longer, let's just coast through. And I've had moments in my life where I've coasted through stuff. And I notice that there's a theme. Whenever I coast, nothing improves. Nothing gets better on its own. Your families will not get better on their own. Now, there's been times where I've been really intentional about it. Before our sons were born, we would read the Bible to them. We would take time and read the Bible before they go to bed while they're in Heather's body in the womb developing. And then when they came out and they were born, we would read an age-appropriate Bible to them. And that's always been part of our lives. And we've always eaten food because we need to. But there are times where we would sit down at a table just like this, and we just simply consume the food together. And there are times where I would read my Bible, and I would be so into it. And then I'd look up, and my kids were completely gone, distant, disconnected. And honestly, I was probably gone and disconnected, but I just knew I had to do it because I was going to impress the ways of Jesus onto my children, even if it was by force, even if they didn't like it, because that was what's good for them. I don't know if you grew up in a family like that, but at one point I was kicked out of Sunday school when I was a kid, and I had to meet with this guy one-on-one for a while, and he would just read the Bible to me. That was not helpful because I got bored, and I thought of other ways to get in trouble, and then I got in that trouble, and then we went on from there. I made a lot of Sunday school teachers retire and quit when I was a kid. I had that gift. Small group leaders as well. I think it's a spiritual gift that God gave me. So, but there are times where I realized, okay, I'm going to have to give my family more attention, and I would go back to it. And then I would find myself just drifting. And some of you have a work schedule that you find yourself in a place where you cannot give it the full attention. And I know that struggle. I worked second shift for several years here in a manufacturing plant. And as my sons got older, my time with my sons got less and less. So I would go in around 2:15 in the afternoon. I would get off around 3:30 in the morning after I got all the paperwork done and stuff like that. And when my oldest son, Shad, would go into elementary, it was okay, let's be creative. So I'd go into the school and have lunch with him every once in a while. I would do other things to spend time with him. I'd get up in the morning before he went to school. And the moment that Carson went into kindergarten, he was going to go to full-time kindergarten, we all broke down crying because we realized the time that we had together was essentially gone. And I had to take time and really be intentional about thinking, okay, can I stay in this constant, I'm just going to stay on this shift, be really successful on this shift in my workplace, or should I give my family the attention they deserve? And some of us have this reality where we can stay focused in our profession and we can be great at it and be successful at it. And when we get home, we find ourselves, especially guys, we can find ourselves struggling and disconnected, and we fail as a parent, or we fail as a spouse, or we struggle at it. And it's easy to fall into the trap of just saying, you know what, I'm going to provide, I'm going to pay the bills, I'm going to give them as much money and things as I possibly can, when really your kids are starving for you and your time. So during this time, I did whatever I could to get on day shift. I filled out bids, applications to do whatever it took to get off that shift. I'm not saying be irresponsible, quit your job right now and just have all the time in the world with your kids. That would be stupid. Unless God is saying, quit your job and do this. But there's a sense and a privilege of showing a work ethic and responsibility and doing whatever you can do, whatever God asks you to do it with excellence. Do it as you're doing it to Christ. That's what Paul talks about later on in the scriptures. But if your profession is overtaking your family time, all I'm saying is maybe you need to sit back and evaluate your options and explore them. Don't allow your job to be the crux or the excuse of why you can't spend time with your family. Explore your options, see what it looks like, and go from there. I know that struggle, and I've counseled dozens of people with that same advice when they're on second shift or third shift or doing multiple other jobs, those kind of things. Don't allow your job to become the excuse of why you can't spend time with your family. Yes, be responsible. Yes, pay your bills. Yes, have a great work ethic, because that's what God would ask us to do, but explore your options. There was a time within this last year where I just sat down and I talked about the Bible time reading with my family, and they were completely gone. And it was their favorite Bible story. It was David and Goliath. And normally it's very interactive. They're even acting it out. One of my sons acts like he's David and he wants to kill the Goliath or the giant and stuff like that. But this particular time, I looked down and they were completely gone. They were just disconnected. It was like talking to a wall. Parents, you've ever experienced that? Yeah. And so I started really evaluating what I was doing as a dad and realized I was drifting. I was just coasting through this time as a dad. So I really started to explore my options and find some resources. And I found this book, The Hour That Matters Most. It's by Les and Les Parrott. It's in our bookstore. I would advise you to pick it up. It's a great book. The first time I read it in like 3 days and just blasted through it, and that's a miracle in itself for me to read something that quickly, and now I'm walking back through it chapter by chapter and really hoping I understand it all. And in this book, I'm going to share the next few moments. I'm going to share everything that came out of that, and I'll put my own personal twist to it. And in this book, they talk about how a lot of people just consume food together as a family. Maybe they go to fast food. Maybe they're just grabbing something here and there. And they're consuming food, and they're not taking the time to make this space and this time special, set apart, a sacred or a holy space that God would have intended it to be. And it's easy just to fall into that trap. And in the book, it kind of challenged me saying, hey, look, you need to connect with your family. There's got to be a time where you can just say, you know what? Everything else that's outside distractions is gone. So we decided we're going to take time and we're going to connect with our family. So we sit at the dinner table at least 4 times a week. There's no toys. There's no technology. Our TV is off. We may have music in the background because we love music in our house. And we just sit around and we talk, and there's food in the 4 Ulrich family, and we just talk and eat. And that I never understood how important that was. I always thought I could sit here, consume the food, and just be in their space, and they would get better because I was here with them. Harvard University did a study. It's an 8-year study of 65 families across America, different genders or different races, different economic statuses, stuff like that. And they're looking for one common theme. What is the number one thing that fosters healthy development in children? The number one theme that they found was this meal together, was a meal time with their family. This is more important than we can even understand for the most part. For our children, to connect with our children as parents. Oprah has done studies several times when she had a show where she would take audience members who admittedly say, you know, we don't even eat meals together. And she would give them a challenge. Will you eat meals for the next 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, whatever? Keep a journal. And so everybody in the family kept a journal. And you could tell if you read through the journals that, and they would share this too, that it was really awkward. They hated the mealtime together in the beginning, but as they went through this process and this practice, they actually enjoyed the mealtime. And they said, majority of them would say that they're going to keep doing it. There's more importance than we understand as parents sometimes of just simply being with our kids and connecting with our kids. And so we sit here and we always turn the TV off, cell phones are off. We're connecting as a family, as the Ulrichs. There's food and then there's us. And then we start rewinding the day together. So we connect and then we rewind. We understand what happened in each other's lives in our days. And we answer the questions, what made you mad today? What has made you sad today? And what are the things that you're glad about? And I may ask some other questions. Heather may ask some other questions. Who was a good friend to you today? Who are you a good friend to? Can you explain that? Why would you answer that way or whatever? What'd you daydream about? Our children need to understand that they are loved, cared about, and that we want to know, as parents, we want to know what's going on in their lives. And our children actually want to know what's going on in our lives as parents. They want to know if you've had a good day. They want to know if you had a good friend interact with you during that time. They care about it. And Heather and I don't even initiate this stuff anymore. Our sons just do it. And it's awesome to sit back and say, yep, they're trained and now they can just be off and on their own. No, they got a few more years for that one. But it is fulfilling as a dad to sit back and say, you know what? They're starting to get this. They're starting to understand the importance of us being together. And I don't know how your family situation is, but if you don't have that time, I'm going to encourage you to find the time, to make the time, to set aside some sacred time where nothing interrupts. No distractions. So we sat down and we made some family Ulrich rules. So our family Ulrich rules are simply this. We eat meals together 4 times a week. There's no distractions. Cell phones, technology, toys, it's all off the table. We don't even answer phone calls or text messages. I would love to say we don't even answer the door, but sometimes we do, because you know how people can be knocking and our dog's going nuts. And then we just simply connect. We rewind. We answer those 3 questions and any other question we may ask. There's no disrespect displayed. If there is disrespect displayed, we correct it on the spot in a loving way, which it's a challenge for me because I'm usually just lash out and correct it right there. But Heather's great at setting that example for me. We build each other up. There's no freeloaders in our house, so you clean up after yourself. 2 people set the table, 2 people clean up the table. And if there's scraps, usually our dog has picked it up already with her vacuum ability. And then we take time to build each other up. And that's difficult for me because it's easy for me, it's probably natural for me just to point out what's wrong and what's faulty and all this other stuff. But for me to take time to build up our children or build up my wife, that's a little bit of a stretch for me. But it's a great stretch for me. Heather, I think it comes natural, but for me, it's just one of those weird things for me. But I know this, God will always stretch us, and God will always challenge us. A few months ago, I was looking for different versions of the Bible for something, various reasons and student ministries type stuff, and I came across this passage in 1 Thessalonians. This is Paul writing to the church in Thessalonica, and it's out of the Message Bible. And I think it's actually in your handout, in your bulletin. Chapter 5, verse 13. It says, "Now, friends or children, we would ask that you would honor those leaders who work so hard for you." You can put the word parent there instead of leaders. "Who have been given the responsibility of urging and guiding you along in your obedience. Overwhelm them with appreciation and love. Get along among yourselves, each of you doing your part. Our counsel is that you would warn the freeloaders to get a move on, gently encourage the stragglers, and reach out for the exhausted, pulling them up to their feet. Be patient with each person, attentive to the individual needs. And be careful that when you get on each other's nerves, you don't snap at each other. Look for the best in each other and always do your best to bring it out. Be cheerful no matter what. Pray all the time. Thank God no matter what happens. This is the way that God would ask that all Christ followers would live." It's like a family code written right there in the Message. Eugene Peterson does a great job at translating that version of the Bible and laying that out for us. That's a way that we can build each other up. Be patient with each other. Don't snap at each other. Encourage the stragglers and the freeloaders. And help that kind of development. And that's what you should do during this time. This space, this time that we could set apart and chisel out in our schedule is crucial to our families. This is a way that we can achieve the goal of impressing the ways of God onto our children. It's not just simply talking and reading the Bible to them. We've got to be able to connect with our children. We have a challenge for you. We're going to throw it out here for you. And here's what the challenge says. I'm committing to give my family the attention and intention required for us to do or become who God created us to be, and to do the things that God created us to do by connecting with my family 4 times a week over a meal. Remember, no toys, no technology at this place. By rewinding with my family, answering what made you mad, sad, and glad today, and any other question you want to throw out there as a parent, building each other up, following 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 13 through 18 out of the Message. If you want to take this challenge, I'm going to ask that you would sign the handout or the bulletin that's in your hand right now. Sign and date it. Keep it up around where you can keep reminding yourself of this. For the next 40 days, do this. And see if you can set a pattern and a schedule where you connect with your family 4 times a week, you rewind the day with each other, and you build each other up. And if you sign and date it, if you've accepted the challenge, I'm going to ask that you would text in challenge accepted into 269-425-1543. be a great way for us as a church to establish this. Because I know our church is only going to be as strong as our families. And our community will only be as strong as our churches that are based on the families and the individuals that make up those families. Battle Creek needs us to shine a light and to represent Christ in a correct way. The way that God has asked us to do it. The kingdom of heaven needs to come crashing in here in more ways than we can imagine. And God is asking us as families to connect with each other. And us as parents to realize our God-given responsibility and privilege of advancing the kingdom on to our children. Our children will change this world in one way or another. And it's up to us to become the spiritual giants as parents for our children. Let's pray. Father God, thanks for this day. Thanks for who you are and everything you've done for us. And God, thank you as parents. We want to thank you that you've given us our children and our families. And the privilege of advancing or passing on our legacy to you, or to them through you. And God, I pray that you would help us to understand that and to live up to it. And God, as we take this challenge of the next 40 days of connecting and rewinding and building each other up over a meal, I pray that our dinner tables and our meal times would be a sacred and a holy and set apart place for you to do your work in our families. God, if there's a parent here that doesn't know you as their personal Savior, God, I pray that you would work in their lives, that they would come up and talk to me or any other staff member here, and we could walk them through that. God, we love you and we praise you, and it's in your name we pray this. Amen.